Okay. Everybody's ready? Ready over here?
Yes.
Ready? All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In conformance with the Open Public Meeting Law, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this regular meeting through notice posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, mailed to all have requested and paid for same, and published in the Suburban Trends. Roll call, please.
Mayor Sarah.
Here.
Council President Rice. Here. Councilman Dyke.
Here.
Councilman Branco's excused.
Yes.
Councilman Devine.
Here.
Councilman Giacometto.
Here.
Councilman Bennon.
Here.
With us this evening is our Borough Attorney Joseph Ragno and our Borough Administrator Kevin Boyle.
Okay, I'd like to start with an update. You know, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of news in the newspaper about what's going on in DuPont. I'm a little unhappy on how it's been handled by the paper, and we'll get into that a little bit. But before we start that, you know, the one thing I can always count on in Pompton Lakes is we're one town, okay? There's not a plume area, there's not a flood area, we're Pompton Lakes, okay? So at the end of the day, we all have to stick together, right or wrong on what we're doing, and move forward. The way this story was put out in the last 4 days, I was very unhappy with. I thought the reporter was trying to sell a newspaper. He's rehashing old information and he's being select on what he says and how he puts it into the paper. His idea was to sell newspapers on the back of my residence here. He has half-truths and incomplete reporting, in my opinion. And an example of that would be, he mentions the 2009 cancer study, but there was no mention, or very little mention, of the cancer studies done in 2010 and 2011, where they did a comparison to the 6 surrounding towns of us right here, and some of the surrounding towns had higher rates than us. We were within the normal range at that point in all cancers. He doesn't go into great detail about a 2014 study that was done by a phone interview, which is not, I'm a scientist by trade, there's no legitimacy to that. That's a phone interview. One of the things that really bothered me was the picture they put in the paper of a meeting that we had in 2009, which I was in attendance to, and a lot of people here were in attendance of, and it made it seem like Governor Murphy has been part of that decision and was part of there making that decision. Governor Murphy was nowhere on the scenes and political scenes at that point. We had that meeting, and the caption reads, "The governor is looking into situations in DuPont and Chemours." Those two things are not tied together. The governor was not there. He made it seem like that's why we had the meeting, and that was incorrect and false in my opinion. The interviews he does, it seems the same couple people get interviewed every time they come in to our town. He goes right to that source of people to interview. Doesn't ask any other residents in our town how they feel. Why isn't he going to the other end of town and asking how they feel? I'll tell you this personally, he has not reached out, the writer, O'Neill, has not reached out to this office, my office, at all, for anything, for any comments, quotes, considerations, what I think, what I feel. How can you write a story without talking to the town you're in? At the end of the day, the town is responsible for what we have going on. We all understand DuPont came in here and caused the problem with what's in the ground. Did they know what they were doing at the time? It's debatable. Okay, but at the end of the day, we know we have a problem. We have a polluter who right now is responsible, who is doing what they have to do to fix it. And one of the examples, again, not mentioned in the report, was the fact that DuPont, in the 35 years since they've been starting this cleanup, has never been fined by the EPA or the DEP. They've never been cited for any wrongdoings on the site. That being said, the town has no say on how the project is moving forward. The EPA, the DEP run these sites. We are just a body that they come and talk to every once in a while, and if my residents have a concern, I did go as far as I could to get the EPA here every week, and they do come every week. Thursday, tomorrow, they'll be in the map room. You can come and talk to them privately about any concerns or any questions you have. I did bring it up to the DEP. I've been fighting for the DEP to be here for many years. They fight and tell me they can't, manpower. I've spoken to some people in the last couple of weeks. They see it as a legitimate request, and they may be starting to look at that. Many residents have been calling me, telling me they're going to boycott the record or they're going to cancel their subscriptions to the Record. They don't like how the Record is portraying our town here in Pompton Lakes. We have an issue. We know we have to move forward from that issue. But to keep throwing us under the bus to outsiders, it's just not fair to the residents in this town. Okay, let's talk about the fact that he uses as one of his sources in the story the ex-mayor who was here. The ex-mayor said he's, found this lock file, and there was information in there that he went forward and tried to save the town. This is the same gentleman who's writing a fictional story about Pompton Lakes, selling it and making a lot of money off this book on the residents of our town. The well-being of our town, he doesn't seem to care about it when he's selling the book. It's only when a reporter comes and talks to him that he has an issue with it. I have documentation here that was provided to me from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and they give a timetable of how DuPont and the federal government responded to the situations here. And it starts in 1983, as the saying, New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection requires DuPont to implement an investigation of the site to access issues with waste and disposal. That's 1983. And then it moves on to 1984, 1985, 1986. Sinsheimer, the mayor that we're talking about, didn't start until 1988. How is he telling me that this was a locked file when 5 years of information has been out there already? Again, I'm not a reporter, but yet we have a reporter writing a story and he doesn't know this, or he doesn't want to put it out there. That's the difference. We as a town should be upset about what's happening here. I mean, I will tell you, I've been in conversations all week with the DEP, with the EPA, and even the governor's office. I got off the phone today with the chief of staff for the governor. He's very receptive, I will tell you, to what's going on here. He's taking an interest. He wants to understand how things are working here. I actually requested maybe we could have a phone conversation, myself and him, next week, and they would try to set that up. This is not something the town is trying to sweep under the rug. We're trying to fix it. We're trying to move forward. It's a very slow process. I understand that, and I understand how people can be upset with that. I myself live in the area where lead and mercury was found. I understand the digging. I understand the health concerns. I understand all those things. But at the end of the day, saying that we want to stop the project to become a Superfund site, which will basically stall us for 9 months, then put us back into the same place we are right now, is a ridiculous comment, in my opinion. We had, back in, I guess it was March 23rd, 2011, the previous mayor and council, which I sat on and some other people also sat on, wrote a resolution stating that we did not want to be a Superfund site and the reasons why we did not want to be a Superfund site. That doesn't mean we don't want the site cleaned up. We want the site cleaned up. We want the site cleaned up to the best way they can. What people need to understand, there's lead and mercury that we're dealing with, and there's also vapor intrusion. The vapor intrusion is so new, there's very little they can do at this moment to make that clean. So the best that they can come out with, and this is not coming from me, I am no expert in this, the best thing we can come up with is a system put on the house that pulls the air out of the house, therefore keeping any residents in their house safe. Once it's put out into the air, it dissipates into the air and there's no issues. That is coming from the federal government and the DEP. That is not coming from our office here. They're still looking and researching on other ways to make this happen. I understand the concerns about the pilot program and the flooding. People who were at that meeting know I supported the fact that there should be an insurance program of some sort for these residents who are concerned about flooding. If it was my house, I would be concerned about it. So at the end of this, and the other thing I hate this, it's just such a tough situation for everyone to talk about. I have a lot of friends over there. I've been in town a long time. It's just a tough thing to see our town go through from people from the outside bringing in the attention that we don't want right now. We have to clean this up. We know that. But we don't need to be on the front page of the Record for 5 days in a row where people who don't know Pompton Lake say, I'm never going to that town. Why would I go to that town? That's not helping anybody. Property values over in the Plume, we just had a tax reassessment. They're the highest they've been ever since we've had the Plume over there. They have so many comps to use, comparison, because houses are selling there for good prices, that at the end of the day, they're getting numbers that were not seen there before. I understand that it affects everybody when it comes to again, this is a Pompton problem. So I understand that when people say it affects the value of your house, it's not just affecting the Plume value of your house, it's affecting every resident's value in their house. So everybody needs to understand that. I brought up the mayor. So at the end of the day, I would hope that the residents of this town, which I've always said are never quiet, they're never going to sit still, speak their mind. You don't be afraid to say how you feel, whichever way that is. Okay, I'm not telling you what to say, I'm not telling you what not to say. But sitting quiet is the worst thing you can do. So if you feel the record was wrong on how they did that, then you need to report that. If you feel the record was correct, then you need to report that also. But it seems strange that when the reporter comes, now he's been here, I took a tour with this reporter last year of the site with the actual EPA regional director at the time, who is now the DEP commissioner in New Jersey. We all took a tour of the site. He had very little interaction with me in the tour. Didn't want to really speak to me in any way. I had to go over and introduce myself. I had to go over and say some things. There had to be a reason for that. I don't know what his reason was. But at the end of the day, he's trying to sell his paper on the backs of our residents here, and it's just not correct, and I just don't approve of it. So that's what I have to say. There will be an open session. We'll discuss this more. But right now, on the council, if you have anything to say now, or you're going to add to it later, whatever you want to do.
I have something to add, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
So I did some research about the Superfund site, and you got to be careful what you ask for. Currently, work is being done. There's some progress being made. If we go to the Superfund site, Superfund list, we end up on a national priorities list, the NPL. Currently, so then we're going to be competing against other municipalities, other sites around the country. Currently, there are 1,341 sites on this NPL, this national priorities list, plus another 55 proposed to be on that list. In addition, the EPA, as we know, the budget's been cut, so that may impact any sort of Superfund work around the country. So folks that want this designation, you got to be careful and really do some homework as to what it means and what it would mean for our town before pushing for this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I can only say that I spent 20 years on Barber Drive across from the plant. I was a resident there. We had a well that we dug for groundwater there. My mother was 103 years, almost 104 years old when she passed away last year. There are a lot of other people there that you cannot correlate to the health issues that are present. Some of those people, the older people that they talk about in these surveys, they often had a lot of exposure because they actually worked on the plant. So there's a lot of things that you would have to really look at to get a proper view of the whole situation.
Thank you.
Just a brief statement, just to piggyback on what Councilman Bennett said. This Superfund is federal legislation that came into being with the intent to clean up sites that did not have corporate entities that were in a position to do the proper cleanup. We're not in that situation. We have a polluter who has acknowledged the polluting. We have a polluter who has been working. The last thing this community wants to do is get thrown onto this list that's regulated by the EPA, that is not funded well, that you just wait in line for monies that may or may not be available, where here we have a polluter that is in fact ready, willing, and able to clean up. The other thing that I'd like to say on a different point, which goes to what the mayor said. Much of this negative publicity to our town appeared in the newspaper. And I think the thing that I found the most troubling is that it wasn't news. It was rehashing of old stuff. If they wanted to highlight news of what was going on in Pompton Lakes, I think what the reporter needed to do is deal with the most recent cleanup in Pompton Lakes. And that was the cleanup of the lake. Over the last few years, we've had an in-depth cleanup of the lake for the lead and mercury. As you drive up high on Lakeside Ave, you can see that they're removing the rest of the equipment. The environmental, the protective layer that wasn't put in before the winter will be added soon. Then the the beds and the periphery of the lake will be cleaned up in terms of much more aesthetically pleasing than what we had. Now, that's good news. Unfortunately, good news doesn't sell papers. I didn't see anyone talking about the $50 million that was spent to clean up, to make things better here in Pompton Lakes. So my major objection is that what was being sold as news wasn't news.
Absolutely. To piggyback on what the councilwoman said, how true. You got several reporters, took over 6 months, 100 boxes of material, hours upon hours, and this is the best you come up with. Same old stuff, you polished it up real nice, and you put it back out there. That's all you did as a paper. It's a shame to see such a newspaper that was founded in 1930 by the Borg family and sold in 2016 to Gannett Company. All right, the Gannett Company expects to make $90 million a year. So you tell me why you think you had a 4-page, 4-part series. To sell newspapers. That's all they're good for, to sell newspapers, to make money. You think they care about Pompton Lakes? They'll talk to none of us up here. That's all they're for, to sell newspapers. It's a shame what happened to that newspaper. It used to be a family-run newspaper for all those years by the Borg family. Gannett brought it over. That's all they care about is headlines and making headlines. That's the best you come up with? Really? Like, I've been here taking their time, it's been forever, everybody's frustrated. Really, that's the best you come up with. That's wonderful. Now, everybody wants the Superfund site. It's called RACRA, RCRA, Resourceable Conservative and Recovery Act, which is pretty much the hybrid arrangement we have now already. It's pretty much the same thing. Both the DEP and the EPA work together. All right? Also, changing gears into having a Superfund site would delay at least approximately 18 to 24 months on top of everything else. You have right now Larry Hangina, part of the DEP, sorry for my pronunciation, and Taylor Cummington, EPA, say that everything's running fine, not to change it. That's your two people running their heads right now, both those departments, saying don't change it. All right? That's what I'm going on. All right? I was a police officer, retired police officer. I'm an EPA specialist. I'm not an environmental specialist, but they're telling me this. Let's go with that. Threat to human life. All right? To human life, everybody's worried about that. It's been contained. They got ventilation systems, and the people that took it to vent out, it's contained as of now. They're trying to clean up. They're doing a pilot study. Superfund site's been here 35 years since it started, all right? This is from the paper now, 4 out of 15 sites in Bergen and Passaic County have been fully cleaned. 4. 9 of them have been on for more than 3 decades, over 30 years. Now, the 4 that have been cleaned up, 2 of them, all right, half, that have been so great, this Superfund site, half of them is Ringwood and Edgewater, and they're pissed off, they don't like what's been done. So 2 of the 4 are crap. But yet people want to go. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Really, this is what you want? You think it's going to be that much of a panacea? It's going to be so much better. You think it's going to be cleaned up? It's going to be fantastic, right? Happy days are here again. Well, you're wrong. It's not going to be that way. Totally mistaken. Don't believe what you read is nonsense, all right? So that's just to show you as far as that. The last thing I said, if the governor wants to do something, I'll tell you what you do. First, 3 things. Put a home value protection plan. Like the mayor said, thank God they're selling good. The values are up. But if somebody sells a house, listen, this is the most important thing you're going to do in your lifetime, besides raising kids and everything else, is your home. It's your investment. It's your livelihood. It's where you raise your kids. It's where I live. You want to make sure your investment is protected. So have a home protection value plan. Listen, the people didn't pollute it, DuPont polluted it. Whether it was wrong, right, it's just what happened. It is what it is. As long as that pollution is underneath there, they should be guaranteeing these homes forever. Till that pollution is cleaned up and they're done and they're out of here, then they can get away from it. But until then, I say to the governor, force them. You want a Superfund site? Don't do that nonsense. They can do nothing. Do something truly right. Force DuPont, all right, Chemours or whoever else, Dow, they're going to go down, be the biggest chemical company in the whole world. Force them to put a home protection value plan on all the homes. All right, as long as they own it. If the fair market value is $300, they sell it for $250. Well, they're going to have to kick in the other $200 or $50,000 to make it $300. Protect the homes. Have it there as long as that pollution is underneath there. Have that there. Second thing, like the mayor said, I spoke out against too. Hydraulic well program. Insure the homes. Force them to insure the homes. I don't care if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. A lot of things don't happen. Enforce the homes. Make that a priority, enforce the homes. All right? And the third thing, if something can be done faster as far as regulatory or anything else like that, the scientific proof is there, we can move things along faster, move it. Let's fast track it. I have no problem with that. Let's fast track it. I understand it takes a long time. Been at this my whole life, but that's all I've been hearing about. All right? But there's some of the few things that I would say do. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm not gonna follow. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to we have a couple, presentations. When we get to the, public session, I'm gonna require that everybody has to state their name, state their address. You all have 5 minutes to speak. I do not want any comments from the audience when someone's speaking. That's not polite. I don't want anybody saying things behind someone else's back. Everyone has the right to speak and say what they have to say, so please let everybody stay. If I have an issue and I have to tell you more than once that you please stop making noise, you're gonna be asked to leave the room. Okay, so please, just let's keep it civil. That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk. We're here to get things straightened out and not cause a ruckus. With that, I'm going to go over to our administrator, who's going to talk about our Passaic County open space farmland preservation.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we have an application on the agenda for additional funding for the Morristown Greenway Project, for Passaic County Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. As you know, the project's now underway down off of the Mount Savin Woodlands. When a bid came in based upon over winter time, based upon our original assessment of the cost of the project, it was a little higher, so we got to the full project. We could do only the first phase. This application allows us to additional county funding, and they've given us 2 rounds of substantial funding on this project to finish up the last 2 phases, which are some additional plantings and some of the amenities. So that being the case, that's the application, $50,000. $59,000 actually, I take it back. So at this point in time, we have to have an open hearing. If there's any comments or questions, I can ask. If not, then we close the hearing. The resolution's on the agenda.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions about this, application, this is the time to ask those questions. We're only dealing with this application right now. We'll be in open public session in a minute. Does anybody have any concern with this, application? Please step up. Yep. You're on television. Don't be nervous.
Marion Moso, my mother lives at 96 River Road, where's her backyard. So you were talking about the amenities and so forth, what you've been doing, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the amenities are just some benches, some water fountains, things of that nature. Eventually, we're going to try to put in some type of an exercise type of course to the park. Those amenities plus the plantings.
Okay, so you're talking about like from Mathis Ave along the water through down to
Back toward the sewer plant.
Grass Drive and back up to that one?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so go on Mathis Ave and there's the path there and there's...
Right, where the path is, yes.
Yeah, the green, is the green, bathroom only temporary thing?
Yeah, that's the construction.
That's for the workers, yeah. There will be no...
There'll be no bathrooms on the site.
So do you know where they're gonna put the plantings, or they're gonna put the plantings closer to her side of the house, the other side?
There'll be more toward the riverside,
So,
if I'm not mistaken.
Mary Ann, right?
And my mother was here.
I remember you coming to the original meeting and a couple of hearings, and I think one of the things addressing the privacy issues of houses that back up to it, that Kevin might not be getting directly at, is in the project, there are the screening trees that are going to be planted, so even as the path's being used, your mother in her backyard won't necessarily see what's going on behind her. So that's the question about what's going to be included in the project. It is
Are there garbage cans along the way for anything?
There are, yes, garbage and
And
recycling.
so then who, is that the town? or
Yes,
does it
yes.
come pick up the
The
garbage?
DPW will be responsible for that.
And so when you get down around the river, around the little bend, right now, there's a little yellow, what do you call it, bulldozer. What's going on right there?
I don't
There's a
know.
big bulldozer here, and then around the bend, there's a little.
It might just be where he's storing it, I don't know.
There's no part of development of the path. You
It's
saw
grading and things like that.
geotexted down there with the crushed stone. That's the equipment they have. They have a large and big small bulldozer.
All right, I'm just curious, she was just curious,
That's
I
okay.
mean, you know, yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one?
That's it, Mayor.
That's it, okay. All right, next we have the lake management plan. Steve Grayberg's going to present that. And by the way, how do you like our new monitors we just put up? It's the first time we're using them, and Steve's going to be the first guy to get to use them. We hope.
No pressure.
No pressure. Don't break it, please.
I did test it.
All right.
So I'm Steve Grayberg, 86 Glen Court,
Just get right up, you got the mic.
here in Pompton Lake. Tonight I'm representing the Lake Restoration Committee. And what we're going to do tonight is just go through a very quick review of the progress towards the goals of the lake management plan and cover a few recommendations, minor mid-course corrections. As background, the lake management plan was adopted in late 2015, so it's about 2 years old. There were 19 goals listed in the plan. They covered 5 areas: invasive species control, stormwater management, safety, community education, and what we refer to as TMDL. TMDL compliance was included. TMDL is a DEP document related to impairment of water bodies. And Pompton Lake has a TMDL for having too much phosphorus. It has too many nutrients. For people, that's usually good. For lakes, not so much. And so we are trying to coordinate some of the improvements that are recommended by the DEP. So what was our progress so far? Really not bad. We've made progress on 11 of the 19 goals. Some important improvements. The Stormwater Management Committee, which was formed in order to help create the plan itself, Lake Management Plan, has now become a separate entity, a permanent entity. It is now a permanent subcommittee of the Flood Advisory Board, very active and a very important part of that board. So they've been moving forward with quite a few important things. They've created an outdoor classroom at Hirschfield Park, so people can see how green infrastructure is created, how easy it is to establish it, how they can do that on their own property. And so that's important. The appearance of Pompton Lake has dramatically improved over the past few years. Most of you have probably been down there and recognize that it's been looking pretty good. The Delta, as we've been discussing, the Asset Delta has been cleaned, and it will be, we expect it to be reopened this spring in pretty pristine condition. We've started to put information about the inlets and outfalls going into the lake onto a web-based system called GIS, Geographical Information System, that will help manage the asset information about stormwater and the condition of the outlet. So these things have all happened, and in the past few years, and so a lot of progress has been made. So where do we move forward? Well, that's coming from the lake. This is really intended to remind you that although we're standing here talking about GISs and TMDLs and stormwater management, really this is where we want to go, to the softer side. But okay, break's over. Back to GIS and TMDLs. So some key recommendations. And to be honest with you, there really isn't a lot of variance from the original plan, especially given the progress that's been made. But we do think we're sure we need to continue with those things that have made it successful so far. Treating the lake for invasive species, water quality monitoring, important things that have helped us get the lake from where it is today. We want to add the Asset Delta as a water quality statistical tool. We've been taking water quality statistics for the past few years and accumulating that and taking a look at what they mean. By the way, nothing tragic has come out of that, so you know. But we want to add the Asset Delta as a statistical point for 2 reasons. One is that if once it's open, the dynamics of the lake change in any way. That'll help us figure out exactly why. Also, since when it opens back up, it'll be basically a start from scratch lake, or that portion of the lake. We'll again have the opportunity to monitor it from the beginning, like we will then. So we feel that's a very good investment. It's not very expensive. Speaking of community education efforts, they've been very successful. It's hard to measure them because it's not really quantitative. But when you take a look at people reaction and how involved people have gotten, when they talk about the photo contests and the calendars, the art contest we just had with the schools. Been a lot of real interest, a lot of good participation. And so, over the course of a generation, I think we'll have a lot more interest in making sure that our water assets are maintained, particularly in Pompton Lake. This town has 2 lakes and 3 rivers. There's a lot of water here. And so knowing how to deal with it and keep it in the best shape it can be is an important thing. So, moving on, continuing to focus on putting information into the web-based geographic information system. That's important. We've got a lot of the basic stuff in there about the inlets and the outflows. If we could start putting the regular maintenance records, I think everybody that's 2018, we've all been dealing with computers for a while. When the information is in the computer, it's a whole lot easier to manage the asset. It's a whole lot easier to report to the regulatory bodies. It's a whole lot easier to find a problem where there is. So it can only benefit us to continue on that direction. I'm asking to raise the priority slightly of measuring the contaminants coming out of the outflows. We originally thought that was going to be very expensive. In reconsidering it, we think that we can use volunteers, maybe the environmental volunteers, possibly borough employees, possibly a Boy Scout or two, looking for an Eagle Scout project to measure that. And the kits turn out to be around $20 a piece. There aren't that many outfalls in the lake. And it doesn't have to be done formally, at least not initially, to figure out if there are any really bad ones and where they are, so that we can focus in on those. So that turned out to be what we think will be a much easier project than we originally thought, and we think we should raise the priority, get started on that, and that'll tell us a lot of what we need to know. Accelerating the repair of damaged outfalls, that's different than measuring the contamination that might be coming through the water flow, but we have some old outfalls in the borough, and I know we've been replacing some of them, repairing some of them over time. I think we just want to kind of accelerate that if we can, and if we can't get funding for it, maybe we can cut out a piece of the budget as much as we can. We can make some slow, continuous progress in that area with our own funds, sort of like we did with the rivers when we couldn't get funding from grants. We can take our own money and continue to make progress, and we can see what a great result that's had. So, we're looking to do the same thing here. Involving Wayne and Oakland in waterway maintenance, there's a task, but it's important. We've had pretty much zero luck getting Wayne involved, and with the lake looking nice like it is, it's going to be even more difficult. But and in the original plan, we don't mention Oakland. We're adding that in now because the folks that treat the lake have mentioned to us, and it appears in their reports, that they have found invasive plants, pieces of invasive plants, floating down from Oakland. And as a result, things that they're not treating could become our problem. And we're going to need to kind of deal with that in some way. So those are the recommendations that we're looking for. Again, very, very minor mid-course corrections, not anything drastically different than was in the original plan. But if I could also mention on a longer-term, high-level plane, the Lakeside Avenue area, from Asset Brook to the Lakeside Avenue Bridge, the borough now has, to some greater or lesser degree, some control over that whole piece of land, that whole continuum. It's really kind of in 3 pieces now. There's the part that Camorra's is going to restore, and then there's the part that's Lakeside Park now, and we've been using that as a park. And then there's the area between the boat ramp and the Lakeside Avenue Bridge that's we now have full control over, but really haven't done anything with yet.
Which is known as some of Muller's property.
The Muller's property, yes. And we now have that whole section. And so basically there's that whole that whole stretch of land from Astor to the Lakeside Avenue Bridge, that we might want to create like a single vision. And I realize we can't do everything together, and different people are responsible for different parts of it, but if we have a common vision of how that whole strip should be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we can work towards individually moving the whole process into that. So you won't end up with 3 or 4 different solutions along a strip where the sum might be better than each individual part. If I'm thinking. So put that in the back of your heads and let that mull around a little bit in a couple of years, and somebody's going to come up with a great idea. Right? That's what we want. And lastly, in another few years, it'll be time to update the local lake management plan. Which deals pretty much specifically with Pompton Lake, but again, we have two lakes, we have 3 rivers, we have water quality issues, we have water quality opportunities, and we might want to, rather than just up the lake management plan, consider it to be, again, a bigger thing, and to include more than just the Lake Restoration Committee, more than the Flood Advisory Board, more than just Pompton Lake, and have, again, a bigger vision of water quality management, and have a master plan for that combined effort. Life is better at the lake. We're going to try to keep it that way. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, and thanks to the group. This is a very dedicated group, along with our flood advisory boards and our other boards, all made up of volunteers who put up time and energy to take care of our lake here. You know, they understand it's a lake used by many residents in town and outside of town, and there's a lot of problems that are associated with that, and they put a lot of time and energy into doing this, so I thank them. Does anybody on the council have any questions or concerns for them? Ted?
I just want to reiterate the mayor's comments. The work that the Lake Restoration Committee does, Steve, Bernadette, Gardner, and Jeff Lippman have really focused the efforts and progress towards, making sure that this plan not only gets updated, but that progress is continually made, and it's showing at the lake. And, it's exciting to see the progress being made. Got to see the systemic treatments, the results of that from last year onto Pompton Lake, and hopefully Twin Lakes shows the same kind of progress from this year's systemic treatment into next year. So again, it's hard work by this committee to make sure that these kind of assets are taken care of.
Definitely. I mean, we're, at the end of the day, we're basically a lake community. So, we have a bunch of lakes and a bunch of rivers, so it's a very important group. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to the committee. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to motion to open the meeting for public comments.
So moved.
Councilman Bennett.
Second.
Council President Riker. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address? Please step up. 5 minutes, name and address. I will go back and forth a little bit, but we're not going to have a major discussion here with each person.
Sure. Mike Simone, 25 West Lenox Avenue, Pompton Lakes. First thing I want to say is thank you, Mayor and Council, for your comments. I think they were all right on target, and I took a lot of steam out of what I was going to say. So you cut off at least 10 seconds of my comments.
That's good to hear.
But in any event, yeah, those points were absolutely well spoken, and I think it really goes to the heart of the whole point. And just after hearing the job that these fine people have done on the lake management, and the fact that Wayne and Oakland are difficult to get to cooperate, and we're doing a good job, where's that in paper? Mr. Agnes, I thought I saw him here. He responds to our town for the record and has done some nice articles on it. All of that gets wasted when you see the article that came up on the DuPont issues. So, here we have a perfect example of how we're being proactive. We're doing the right things for the right reasons. We're trying to encourage other towns. We're trying to make our area better. And it's completely absent from the newspaper. So I just want to, again, thank you guys for doing a great job that you do. And I hope it does make its way to the paper. And I hope it does get a lot of interest in the fact that Pompton Lake is moving forward as both a lake and a town. Getting back to DuPont. I was so annoyed when I read the first article that I was actually anticipating needing mail-outs for the rest of the articles, and it almost came to that. And then as having another one open up today with another story about how everybody's demanding just got me even more in a bit of a rile. But the bottom line out of all this is that if you look at the entire picture of what's gone on, there is not a valid reason to change from RECRA, which is what we have now, to CERCLA, which is Superfund. RECRA is a federal act, CERCLA is a federal act. The difference being primarily that RECRA takes into account that people have an active project or an active site and work is ongoing. CERCLA comes in, Superfund, when the guy's missing, the company's out of business, they know who it is, but he doesn't have any money, all of those reasons that there's no money to fix anything. And so all of a sudden you now have a site that it cannot be remediated, and they have to go to Superfund, and the federal government puts the money in, and they try to recover it from whoever the polluter was. It's so black and white to me that there shouldn't even be a discussion. The governor should just simply say to his people, talk to you guys, tour the site, talk to the DEP, talk to the EPA, see what's been done. And I started making a little list because this whole process started when I was still the planning board chairman. It goes back to the 90s, right around 1990, when DuPont first came to the planning board and said, we have a project that we have to start remediating. And as far as I remember from what was done, they started off with a site that was on-site. They had to remediate some on-site work. Then they went off-site. They did some work where they did all those major excavations to remove the lead and mercury in the dirt. And then they came back again and they worked on the upper part of the Wanacue River, which was where Lake Inez was. And then they had another time they came back to the planning board, because the planning board is the group that has to approve their projects from a town ordinance perspective, because there's soil movement in there. Then they came in and they wanted to remediate Lake Inez area. They did that. Then they said, we want to come in and do...
1 minute, I'm just warning you now, 1 minute.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Okay. Gotta keep it fair.
Okay. And then there was, after Lake Inez, then there was the lower part of the river, which is the part that was by Wilderness Park, West Lenox Avenue. Then they went further south and they did some remediation, I believe, by the old swimming pool area. Then they did studies that went all the way down as far as Wayne on the Ramapo River. Then they came back and they did more cleanup work, and then they went over to the lake and they did that work, which is almost done. They authorized the vapor mitigation systems. I don't see how anyone can say nothing's being done. And so what it comes down to is what's left. Okay, there's some on-site areas that need to be remediated. There's no doubt about that. The on-site work is under control of others. We have no say in that. Once that's done, that site then becomes a usable site. When, I don't know, but that's, again, an issue that gets dealt with the DEP. Off-site, the only real major issue is the plume. And the plume issues are strictly vapor emissions from volatile organics that are in the water. If you take a system and put it in your house, it solves that issue. I know of no science that can magically come in and fix the plume. The DEP and the EPA have experts. The EPA went so far as bringing in 3 PhDs from their own facility out in, I think it was Utah?
No, Arizona.
It was Arizona?
Oklahoma.
Okay, I knew it was out there somewhere. Big states out there. And they came actually in here and they sat down and they went through the whole site and said, this is what you need to do, this is the best we can do, and they were ridiculed. They were absolutely ridiculed by people who knew nothing. And so when they left, they had to have been saying, oh, we tried. And so DuPont made the best efforts they could with the science at the time. And to my knowledge, today, there is no magic potion that they can put into the ground to eliminate the volatiles, which means that the key to it is keeping it out of your house. If anyone still does not have a vapor mitigation system in their house, it's a big mistake. They should absolutely get the vapor mitigation systems. The rest of it is all legal. You want to sue DuPont because you lost this or lost that or your health. It's not really the town's problem to fix, because it's not something I believe that we have legal standing in. I think the whole issue is, can we get it fixed, and how do we get it fixed, and it's being done. That's my own personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I will follow up on one thing that I did not mention in my report, but you did bring it up, which is very important. If someone listening to this or seeing this does not have a system on their house, for whatever reason, whatever fighting you're having or not having, you should have a system on your house. If they're giving it to you for free and you have a 0 reading in your house, then put it on your house anyway, because it's going to pull out radon. It's going to pull out any issues you have in the house. You know, out of the 409 homes I think we have in the plume, there's still about 50 homes that don't have systems on them. And you know, no matter what happens in the future, that's unacceptable in my opinion. You should have systems on your house.
Oh, by the way, I'm one of the people that just canceled the record.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the public like to speak? Well, raise your hand, but okay, you're up there. Go for it.
Helene Zablocki, 6 Butler Street. I'm not sure what the right thing is to do at this point regarding the pollution in this town. And we may never really know whether one process is better than the other. I do think that we need to move forward. But DuPont, our polluter, has done unconscionable things in this town. They knew exactly what they were doing. Something that the record reporter did not know, and many people in this room did not know, may not be aware of, is that none of this cleaning up for the last 25, 30 years would be happening had it not been for the intervention of Jack Sinsheimer.
Well, that's untrue.
And I think at this
That's
point,
untrue.
okay, I've listened to you.
No, I'm just going to say, I'm going to let you finish, but there's statistics
Okay.
from the government that say.
And I think at this point, if we are going to move forward, we will not be able to document, unfortunately for the people who have been sick, exactly what the cause and effect was. Maybe some people did live to 100, but there are a lot of other people who are sick. To minimize what's happening to them is not serving anybody's purpose.
I agree.
The question I came tonight to ask the council was, have you made a decision regarding the status of Pompton Lakes as a stigma-free town?
We are not going to go that route right now.
Is there a reason why?
The council has decided not to do that right now. We can readdress it in the future, but
I would hope that you do. Thank you.
No, I think that was something else, Mike. The stigma-free was the mental health. The mental
oh,
health.
the mental health part. That's what
you meant, right,
thinking about.
Helen?
I'm sorry, the mental health?
The stigma-free status that was talked about at the first January meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
The Board of
yes, I'm
Health.
sorry, I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about something.
that's what she's talking
Yes, we
about.
already did that
Yes.
through the health department. We've already established that, and we're actually going to start reaching out to Chilton Hospital and try to bring some of their programs into our health department to use. You know, there was a lot of discussion at the health department, maybe Frank will follow up, about that. It was nice to have that title, but we'd like to do more than just having the title that we are this. So I think the health department decided that they were going to start trying to reach out and get some mental health programs brought into the town itself.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I got the wrong information there. Step up.
Mayor, Russ and I are coming to the other side, all right?
Yes.
Show them your shirt, Russ.
Name first, give me name and address.
Pompton Lakes Riverdale Youth Organization cheerleader.
He is a cheerleader.
We are Russell Cockafert and Greg Cockafert, 26 Albert Street, Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. We have some good news, is that show them your trophies that you got in, that's what the
nice.
special needs group got.
Very nice.
I'm showing the other ones.
We're going to take a picture.
Our girls did so well that they're going to Atlantic...
Hold it up.
Okay.
Hold both of them up.
Yeah.
Okay. Our girls are going to Atlantic City and also Baltimore for the championship series.
Great.
And I love the cheerleaders. They're so precious. But cheerleading has changed since 1975 when I was in high school. It's a lot different. So different that it scares the heck out of me when they do all the routines. See, our squad never did all those fantastic routines. They just cheered. So Russell's proud, my mom's proud, and we're all proud. And thank you for coming to our meeting last Thursday.
I had the honor of attending their meeting last Thursday, and they had a lot of inspired information to tell me about many different things they'd like to see done, which some of them were great. They did tell me they were going to the cheerleading, and I'm glad to see you did well with that. That's
See,
great.
there is positive news.
Very good, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Gentleman on the end.
Good evening. Joe Vignato, 41 Arcadia Road. Before I get to my concern, I just want to give a little bit of praise. One of my children just recently, before Thanksgiving, transferred over to Lincoln School, and he loves it. I have nothing but praise for the staff there and the curriculum. Just to give you an example, today they did a Skype session with meteorologists from News 12.
That's great.
And he enjoyed it. Which brings me to my concern, which I'm sure everybody knows because I keep hearing that, oh, that's been like that since 1950. The drop-off and pickup at Lincoln, it's bad. You got cars double parking, you got 3 rows of cars, then another car trying to pull in between cars, and kids are running out. You know, I'm just concerned that somebody's going to get hit there.
I agree with you. I mean, you know, the situation there, I've been there, and like you said, this is an ongoing situation over there. You know, it's part concern from the parents not doing the right thing on how they drop off their own kids, and it's also the fact that we don't have someone to monitor the situation as it goes through.
Well, it's sad that you'd have to put an officer there to babysit a bunch of parents.
And what I'm going to tell you, we will put officers there again. We've done it in the past. And what's going to happen, unfortunately, is people will get ticketed. And, you know, I used the example, and I was talking to you before, that, you know, we did it last year, and a grandfather was dropping off his grandson for the first time, didn't know the pattern, got out of his car, walked to the store, got a ticket. You know, those are the things we're trying not to happen, but unfortunately, the parents there can't follow the rules enough to keep it moving. We will talk to the school again and see if we can work out something with the school.
I know Mr. Shadyac puts out in the message, you know, every month, and it's just over the head.
I did refer your email to Chief Augusto.
Oh, thank you.
Your picture. So-
Right, so, you know,
Aware of it.
eventually we'll be down there again. I would hope that the parents understand that we don't want to go down there and ticket when you're dropping off your kids. But at the end of the day, if we can't get through traffic or it's dangerous, it's going to be a problem, then this is what's going to have to
Now,
happen.
Officer Rodriguez came down with another officer yesterday and cleared the way, and today nobody was there, and they were back like roaches.
Right. Well, that's what's going to happen, but we'll stay on top of it, and then it was passed to the police department, and I will follow up on that to make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak?
Maria Kent, 17 Glen Court. I want to first thank Steve Graber for that presentation, and my husband, ex-Councilman Lloyd Kent, was very much involved in that too, and I know how much work they've done on that lake program. This lake is very special I think, to many of us for many reasons, and thanks for all your work, and we have to continue on with that because the lake is really the prize of the town, the namesake. So I look forward to working on that, continue work on that. I felt I was in today when I read the paper, and I've been looking at the internet, and I felt I was at that movie, Groundhog Day, where you keep reliving the same thing over and over again. And I hear about fake news at the federal level, but here it is, like fake news right in our doorstep. The Suburban Friends, I'm in this picture. I can't wear that coat anymore, I'm too heavy, you know? I can't wear it. And that was about 6 years ago, okay? So when I saw me in this picture with my old coat, I got really mad for a couple of reasons, okay? And I think Councilwoman Riker, I think you're sitting next to me in that picture, that's you.
And I probably can.
Mr. Graber, but to say that Governor Murphy is horrified by the Pompton pollution is so false. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to be sick. Nobody wants their town to be polluted. But to say it as if it's a brand-new thing that just happened, and Mayor, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you, Councilman Giaconetta, for your passion, Councilman Bennon, Councilman Begg, and Councilwoman Riker, for seeing that we cannot continue on like this. We work very hard. We live here. We cannot continue to see the same thing over and over and over again. We took this up issues. We want to move on. We've moved on. I don't see anything positive about what's going on in that lake. I look at the cleanup every day of my life. I wake up and there they are. And they work from 7 o'clock in the morning, in the spring till like 7 o'clock at night. And to me, from looking at all the EPA reports that we get, I believe every week, Pat Secchi sends out reports to anybody who wants them. It's unimaginable why somebody would say this is horrifying if they haven't been brought up to snuff. And if this is what the newspaper is doing, then shame on them. And the only thing I can say, Councilman Giaconetta, the paper is about yay thick. So nobody's advertising with it anymore. So I think they're starting to feel the need that they've got to go back to something that's sold, like looking at Princess Diana pictures all over again. Come on. We can't keep doing this. If that's what they're going to do, then shame on them and don't buy it. And I still get it, so I'm still a patron, but I tell you what, today was my day. I think I'm going to call tomorrow. Because we have to have news that's current, it's factual. If it's factual, that's fine, whatever that may be. But to sit here day after day and seeing this toxic plume and over again, and people are, it's a scary thing to keep seeing that. And we don't need that. They've done so much out there to make changes. And I am afraid that this bad press from rehashing old news is going to somehow or other impact our leak cleanup. And I will be furious with that, because we really want that leak cleaned up, and we want it finished. We do not want that leak. We do not want them to walk away from that. I don't know how, I can't even imagine that happening. But that's the last thing we need, because our name, Pompton Lakes, is on the bottom of that deed for that leak. I am not paying for that. I refuse to pay for that. We have DuPont, we have Chemours, they're paying for it, they're doing the job. I mean, to me, it looks like it's a wonderful job from what I read from the EPA news releases. And it sounds like they're on schedule. I don't know what else you can do. But there's no way I want that process to stop. That lake's got to be clean. And to the other gentleman who mentioned about the lake, there is a project and as you know, on the Open Space Committee, I'm one of the biggest proponents of it. I want a waterfront project, and I want to put this lake back on the map in a good way. And we're going to have docks and places to kayak once this project is done. Mayor was out there with us. We had Easy Dock. They were out there and they gave us a proposal, $325,000 sitting in a binder. And we know that we can do that. Can't do it right now, obviously. But as soon as that lake is cleaned up in another year, we should absolutely put that project online and make that a beautiful, accessible lake for all ages. All ages. And that's all being done through the Open Space Committee. And that has been on the Open Space report since like 2003. That was one thing we wanted to do. We were so fortunate to buy it from Mr. Mueller for a very, very minimal amount of money. So we can really make that a nice project and, try to get rid of the bad feelings and the sights of all the pollution that's gone on. Let's move on. We need to do that for our residents, and I want to thank you very much for taking that. And bring Governor Murphy here, and let him see, and let him look at the volumes of work that's been done. And where there need to be work, we still have to stay on that and get it done. But we do have to get it done for our own sake. I'm getting old, okay? And, we're getting old, and I don't want my children to grow up in a town that has such a bad stigma. And I know we've been doing the best we can, and I know we only have a limited amount of oversight in what we can do, but this has got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. I will follow up on some things you said there. I think one of the things that I always stand by, no one on this council here is an expert in any of this that's going on, okay? We're all residents of this town. We all pay taxes. We all raise our kids here. We all do what we have to do here. We have to rely on the experts who do this, and that would be the EPA and DEP. Now, do they mess up? I'm sure they do. We look at Ringwood. Doesn't seem like it's a project that's working out very well over there in Ringwood. The DEP, it has to deal with it on one part and the EPA on the other. We can do the best we can from this dais to help, but at the end of the day, it's about facts. That's what's going to make this thing work. Everyone has to be on the same page about getting the facts out to the residents. There's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of innuendo, there's a lot of different things being said, but at the end of the day, I can only go by facts. And maybe that's my upbringing, but we all have to think about, look, we understand that there's some issues going on in there. Now, to date, there hasn't been a lot of talk about the health studies that have been done over there, maybe it's time to do another one. I have no problem with that, okay? Again, that's more factual information, but I can only go by the facts that were done on the last 3 previous health studies. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from, please step up.
My name is Bernadette Aaron Sebia. I live at 65 Lakeside Avenue. You can hear me?
A little louder.
Sorry. Bernadette Aaron Sebia. I live at 65 Lakeside Avenue. I was born and raised in this town. My father worked for DuPont. Many of my friends' parents worked there. And I left the town when I was 21, spread my wings. I came back after a divorce. I came back specifically to live in this town. I had a lot of friends get sick. Parents die very young. So I understand your frustration. You know, I'm a homeowner too, and I want to see my house, you know, that's my retirement. I get emails from my ex-husband daily since this newspaper came out, basically saying, you know, what's going on in your town? And, you know, you're raising my kids in this town, and he has concerns, and rightfully so. I think that there's just not enough education out for people within the town that necessarily don't live in the Plume area. And I think if there was more education for all of the residents in the town, it might make it a little easier.
I agree 100% with that comment. You know, for most people, you know, for us, this is information that we don't really deal with on a daily basis. How many people know what a rec work program is compared to a Superfund program? You know, most people don't understand how that works. And that's why it's so critical. Look, I understand that some people don't like talking in front of a crowd and don't want to ask their questions because they just don't feel comfortable in doing that. So that's why the EPA is here on a Thursday, to go in there. They're here all day. You can go ask them anything you want, any concerns you can, you know, anything you want. I also believe the DEP should be here for that too, because they're running this project also. They should be here once a week or once every 2 weeks for residents to go in and speak to them and say, look, this is my concern. Tell me what this means. Tell me, is my children safe living in a basement with, you know, in the Plume? These are the questions I would ask if I was
Or even outside of the Plume. We
Or
don't
outside
know,
the Plume,
you know.
right.
And I'm not trying to make light of anything that's happened in this town over the many years. As for, you know, the newspaper and the articles that they wrote, may I suggest you respond?
They won't
You know,
take my response.
They won't? What about a letter to the editor? They
A
won't?
letter to the editor they would do, but that to me tells you volumes right there, that they won't take my response.
I understand. I can understand your frustration. But I think maybe the people that have more knowledge can maybe set a special meeting aside to make it public so that the residents in the
I agree.
town can be a little more educated so they understand the difference between, you know, Superfund and not Superfund.
You know, and what you said too is very important. I'm sure we all have gotten calls, including myself, from people who don't live in Pompton Lakes, who are reading this in South Jersey or in, you know, New York or wherever they are, going, what's going on? Isn't that the town you live in? Why
Yeah.
would you live there? You know, who wants to hear those phone calls all the time from outside people? I understand the frustration in that.
But this is
again,
my kid's father, so
I get
it's
it.
a big...
It's a big deal. I get it. But again, it's not being educated either. They don't have all the facts, but they're reading what they read in the newspaper. That's where the facts come from. I credit our governor, our governor who's sitting now, that he is going to take some time to look into this the proper way, instead of just jumping to facts, to what he reads in the newspaper. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
And that can't necessarily be a bad thing, bringing some fresh eyes into
No,
something
I have no
that's
problem
going
with
on,
that.
and just making sure that whatever contamination is, you know, let's get it cleaned up, let's contain it. You know, again, our town is surrounded by rivers and lakes, and, you know, we don't know. I think what you said about that health study, doing another one, is so important.
Yeah, and that could come from the state. I mean, that's something that could happen from the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address? Go ahead, Lou. She did stand up, because I'm not going to say why. but-
Couldn't see me down there. I know. Stand up. That's what they always say. Wasn't that John Murray saying, stand up, John? Millie Torsiello, 444 Midland Avenue. The cleanup from DuPont started in 1988. I was councilwoman at that time. and that's when they started cleaning.
That's when they started, but the paperwork was before that.
Before that,
Right.
which it was not known to the town.
That's debatable.
Right. But we know that, because it was in lock and key, and when we broke the paper, we found the paperwork.
From
and
someone
we
who
did
wrote a
something.
fictional story saying it's
Well,
locked and key.
it happened, I was there. Okay, I voted on everything for DuPont to start cleaning, whatever the professionals was telling us at the time. All the council voted for it, and we demanded DuPont to start cleaning, and
Good.
they did. But we're still there. We're still there, and it's a shame. Councilman Jack Nate, I heard you asking and telling the people what they need to do and how they want to do. They've been coming here for years, asking for help to do just what you said. What is your position in helping these people? Can you do something about it? Meet with them, tell them maybe it's something they're not doing right, and maybe you can suggest to do it right.
I think Councilman Jack, and I've gone with him to CAG meetings, and he does stand up and talk, so he is there, and I know he does attend those meetings. We used to have more CAGs than we have now. So that is something that I've discussed with the DEP and the EPA again, about putting CAGs together. So what a CAG is, so for people to understand, it's a group of citizens made up of the town that get together to understand what's going on with the projects, with DuPont and Chemours. We had some situations in some previous CAGs that we had where some residents got out of control, and the EPA decided to step off of the CAGs. I wasn't a fan of that, but it was also our own fault for not being polite in how we do things and how we have meetings. Look, at the end of the day, we all have to talk about how we're going to do it. Screaming and yelling is not making anything better. I would revisit that. I'm sure Councilman Giacometto would be okay with that.
Well, this is what I'm asking, maybe
You don't mind me,
you have a different
Sure.
idea how to go about it, to get the insurance, to get the protection for all
Yeah,
the
ice cream
residents.
pony. Ice cream back in 1997. Right here, here's the newspaper. Jack and Edith says DuPont just drags on, another 10, 20 years. Guess what? We're past there.
Right.
Here's when the paper was actually a paper. Here's the mugshot of me out front. Here it is. You want to see it? 1999, I was there. DuPont ain't doing enough. They're not doing this and that.
But this is what
Then I
I'm
became a
saying.
police officer. I met with our representatives, my representatives, your representatives, state senators, congressmen, everything else like that. I've done that. Besides holding their feet to the fire, I've done that.
Why can't you follow them again? Why can't they do it again?
I'll do it again.
So what I think we're
You
asking...
don't hear me now? That's what I'm doing.
Let's, hold on, everybody calm down.
You don't hear me yelling? I was at the last meeting over here at the Congress Center.
I heard-
I wasn't loud enough, I didn't say loud enough. Let's do something here, you don't say anything?
I was outside and I heard you.
Exactly, that's what
How
I'm
about
saying.
you
I've
get
done
the
it.
residents and bring them to those people and say, okay, here I am, Councilman Jackman.
There's 4 pages in there. 4
Forget
papers.
the pages, it's gone.
So what I
It's
think-
gone.
I
You
think-
need something to do now. You need to
Been
do
doing
something now.
it. Been doing it. Been doing it.
But have you been in contact with the residents to say what you're doing?
Of course, I'm here.
I've been at their meetings,
What
nobody
meetings?
mentioned the residents' meetings.
What meetings? They don't involve me anymore. They don't want me there anymore. They don't have
Well, the CAG meeting, you don't have it.
Exactly.
And let's address that a little bit.
Yes.
They did come to me and ask me to help them have the meetings, and I did work with them and try to get them a space.
Okay.
I understand that they haven't come forward and asked anymore, so I'm not gonna follow them. I will tell you that I've gone to numerous meetings over there, and Councilman Giacometto was there, so.
I was there, I saw you guys
So,
there.
at the end of the day, having a group put together to talk about how things are going is not a bad thing, it's a good thing.
Right.
And that's what a CAG is put together for. I think that we'd have to think about who sits on that CAG to be respectful of everybody's opinion, so everybody can, I can't have residents afraid to talk at a meeting, and some residents do get afraid to talk. So we'd have to think about that, but I would have no problem putting a CAG together, and I don't think Councilman Giacometto would either.
Well, that'd be great, because this is what they're looking for. They're
That's
looking
fine.
for help from mayor and council. And I can't blame them,
I understand.
Absolutely.
because their voice is not carrying. Their voice is not going anywhere.
Hopefully the governor will come meet with us. That'd be even better.
I'll
Get the
call,
governor
I'll
here,
go
we'll
with you
sort
to
of-
the governor, so it's,
Get
call
him
me
here,
and we'll go.
Mayor and I will
I have no
have a
problem.
nice little tour.
Okay, well, that'll be great. And Councilwoman Buckler, I didn't recognize you from back there. I have to start sitting in the front. I thought there was a new councilwoman on the chair. You were great. Okay, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else? That-
Hi, Ann Tastinelli, 5 Lambert Street. Well, I was at a council meeting one or two times ago, and I mentioned the darkness down at the south end, and street signs that are, did we get anywhere with that?
Yes, we've actually made great progress with that.
Okay.
Councilman Venon has worked out with our new DPW supervisor, and they've straightened out a couple signs already, and the police chief has done a light count of the posts that are out and poles that are out, and they've reported it to the Jersey Central Power and Light, and they're following up to see where we are with that light count and see where we are.
Thank you
We
very
actually did a
much.
full
Thanks.
count of all the lights.
Okay. Mr. Baig, you were going to confirm, I wrote an email to Dr. Amoroso and told him what I learned at this meeting, and then I asked that you would keep them to inform us of any, did you get anywhere with that? Okay, so you're working to get that ability that the neighbors will get notified if
We've talked
of
about
anything going on, in case we don't all make every board meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, you're not gonna, it's gonna probably be for a major project.
Oh, yeah, that's okay, yeah. And I was at a school board meeting, and the gentleman who mentioned the curriculum for our town is amazing, and they keep bringing them on, so I'm impressed with all that.
And we should mention, while you bring that up, we did get picked one of the top 10 schools in North Jersey for education, which is a pretty high achievement for a small district. We're talking about towns like Franklin Lakes and, Wyckoff, and we're above them in our education system. And I should also mention, we are one of the safest schools, according to some reports, in New Jersey, and 4th in the country. Those are pretty big accomplishments for a small town. Look at that. That's pretty impressive.
One in the state of New Jersey, 4 in the nation.
The lake, all that you're doing, wonderful. I think it's great. You've been working for a couple of years on that, and I support that cleanup. I'm just not sure if DuPont is going to have done it totally. I have my skepticism. I've never been fully convinced of the Superfund site request, because I do feel RECWA does have, to some extent, that ability. But I do wonder how far it has gone to this point. Because people are saying they're doing, it's easy for some of us to say, but there's still people living on top of it. The activists, if it wasn't for them, to get a lot of the work that has been done, would never have been done until they beat up DuPont and they made their voices heard out there, and things got in the paper. I believe wholeheartedly that that's why that work got done. DuPont, that miraculous company who's so wonderful, waited 8 years to tell people they were sucking in vapors in their home. And that was only between the time that they knew they were sucking them in and did something about it to let them know. It was before that the vapors were coming in.
Right, but it was also a new science at that point, and they weren't sure of what that was. I agree with what you're saying, but there was also a new science.
I don't know how people continuously discount the real issue of the plume. Are you kidding me? People live there. People live on top of this land. I'm almost by it. Almost. I'm not living on top of it. So I can't even speak for how I would feel if I was that person living on top of it. Many administrators have sued the polluter. I haven't read to find out to the extent that they received relief because of it.
Not many.
And I keep hearing the best we can, we did what we can do to the best we can. And I'm looking at Mr. Simone only because he was the one who made most of those points when he was up here. A Superfund with a polluter usually doesn't take as long as a Superfund without a polluter to hold to their feet to the fire. We have both. We have the polluter, and I guess the Superfund site is an option. Again, I'm not fully convinced of it, so I'm not up here pushing it. I'm just stating if there was anything at all that needs to be done, it needs to be done. And someone mentioned Groundhog Day, living it every day. Really? They're living it every day. You're reading it in the paper every day. You're not living it. You're not living on it. People are sick or died because they actually worked at the plant. I think you said that, Mr. Day. Really? Well, what does that tell you? The chemicals killed them when they worked at it. So obviously, if they're under the ground and they're coming up through the ground, that's why people are sick and dying.
And that's why they offered the ventilation system.
Okay. After they sucked it in for over 8 years or more.
You got about a minute.
Okay. And one last thing. The clean dirt that they brought out to those homeowners in the 90s, and they cleaned up all that land and removed the dirt, and then they went back and they offered low-interest loans to entice people to come right on back in and live in it again. Okay? I always pushed for, you want people to stay there, buy them out, or pay their taxes and let them live tax-free. And then if they die, it's their own fault. But people need the option of getting out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. The option to get out, so let's talk about that a little bit. The option to get out. Right now, the homes, and you should know this because you're in the field, the homes in the plume are selling, and they're selling quickly, and they're selling for a good price. So anyone who has an option, who wants to get out, this is the option to do right now.
And sell it to someone else who's going to now be put in that position.
Those people coming in, if they do the due diligence, I had a real estate agent call me today about a house he's selling, and a resident was concerned about the system. And he said, how come they can't come back and retest the house when a new resident moves in? And the way it sets now is, once the system is operational and you've gotten your numbers for that house, they don't come back and retest on every house. And that could be, I could see how that could be, if I'm buying a house. I always look at things personally, how I would do it. If I'm buying that house, I would feel a little uncomfortable not knowing for sure that those numbers were safe to me, even though they're telling me they are. So what I would do if it was me, I would hire my own inspector to go in there and do a count of the air and get a monitor, and if those two match, then I got no issues and I can move forward and the system's doing what it's going to do. Right, and I suggested that to this landlord. I said, don't expect that they're going to come in and do a house. Every time you sell a house, they're not going to retest it in the area. But for my peace of mind, I'd have to live there 30 years, I would probably do that.
But you had a realtor call you that was ethical and considerate.
That is control.
And there are some out there, and I'll tell you, they're not. And these people are buying these homes, and yes, buyer beware. That's what I tell everybody. You are at their mercy too. You have to make sure, whenever you buy anything, and you can't say they don't know it, it's been in the papers, obviously.
No, I agree, but I just wanted to put it out there that, some of our higher comps, since we've done this tax revale, were actually in the plume. So, there were some big increases in numbers on what they paid on houses. So that's a good thing. That's a good sign for the town and a good thing for those homeowners. Anyone else from the public like to address?
Karen Dean, 24 Central Avenue, Pompton Lakes. I was on that CAG committee at one time, and...
Talking about the first CAG.
Right, Citizens for Clean Pompton Lakes. And we always wanted help, but the town never backed us. They don't want stigmatism, but they never showed any support for us. Because they're not in the area, so they don't care. But when the flood happens, the whole town rallies around them.
I don't think that's true.
That's true.
I think people...
I get a lot of
care
stuff. When I was on there, I get a lot of grief from a lot of residents.
But you're also, not you personally, but other people are putting out a lot of grief to themselves.
Because they're upset, just like he yells
I
when he
understand.
talks about stuff when we're here. They're yelling and screaming.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and just to let you know, when I sold my house, I was told because I'm in a plume, I get charged 6%.
And you told me that, and that was unacceptable
That
to me.
was terrible.
And I told you that at that time.
Terrible.
Terrible.
And as you all know, I was able to move with my company. And I told you this over and over again. They would have bought my house, but they don't buy houses in contaminated areas. So therefore, I lost going for a job in Pennsylvania with my company, so forced retirement. So you can see how angry I am.
And I can understand, and I did, at that time, follow up with that company and call them and say, and they did tell me that. They said, we don't buy homes in
know.
Pompton. And I said, that's unacceptable, that's actually
Right.
discrimination, and she probably could sue over that.
Right.
Um,
Well, nobody told me that, else I would've, but, I would've tried anyway. But just to tell you that nobody in this town ever supports the people in the pool. Nobody.
I disagree.
And it's a shame. No, I even had one girl say to me to shut up.
Like I
And she's a
said,
big thing in town here.
like I
You know,
said in the
and
beginning,
when you were talking before, excuse me, you were talking about the, Asset Brook, Boy Scouts, I don't understand. Did you want them to test the water?
no, I'll answer that.
Okay, because I didn't understand that part, and I'm going, how could you put the kids where there's toxic
The
water?
flood group does their own testing, has nothing to do with contaminants from the vapor. It's about the bacteria and...
Oh, okay, I didn't know it was the toxins that are going in the lake, you want the kids to
So
go test
basically,
it.
the kids would be taking the water sample, sending it to a company, and then they test it.
Okay. Now, when this is all said and done, hopefully one day, maybe years from now, we're gonna be able to swim in that lake again?
I'm going to say the same thing I've been saying for the last 15 years. Every lake in New Jersey, you're not allowed to swim in right now. It's not because of vapor, it's not because of lead and mercury, it's because of contaminants from fertilizers and animals. Our lake has never been told to us by the EPA or the DEP that you cannot swim in it because of vapor or lead or mercury. It's been, you can't swim in it because of coliform and other contaminants in the lake.
Well, I know, because in the summertime, when I used to drive by the lake to go home, I had to shut my windows, because I took my breath away. The gas, whatever that is
Yes.
coming out of there, choked me when I was driving home. It was awful. And so I just want to let you know.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't tell people to swim in the lake now, but for that reason, not because of lead and
So,
mercury.
because, I mean, I grew up here, had the privilege of the lake and everything.
Sure.
And they don't have it anymore, these kids.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address? You got me at the last second.
I knew you were right. Please don't say, Randy Hinton, 443, Montclair.
You got 5 minutes.
2 minutes at the most.
Okay.
Please don't say a general statement like that, all lakes in New Jersey you can't swim in. There are plenty of lakes in New Jersey that you can swim.
This is according to the Fish and Wildlife's website. Go there and it will tell you that.
Oh, yeah?
What it really says is, I can't, there's certain limitations on fish.
Fish, but also swimming.
There's plenty of lakes.
I'm sure there are, but I would say a good majority of them through acid rain and contaminants from
Well, not
fertilizers.
like they were when I was a kid, of course.
No.
You know, I grew up swimming in Pompton Lake. That's where I had my swimming lessons. That's where I learned arts and crafts. It was a beautiful time.
Like many.
Those times are not here now. But there still are lakes.
I'm sure there
that you
are.
can swim.
Maybe I was a little past it.
I don't like to catch it all the time, though, but once in a while I do. My issue, Channel 77, information, look at all this information that could be out there. What are we waiting for? Why is it taking so long?
Administrator will answer that for us.
I reached out to Cablevision today, they did some splicing last week. We have our equipment from the high school ready to go. One said bring the last of our equipment over, and I haven't heard back from Lydia yet to come with the EPAs on that, but it's really Cablevision.
Can we just follow up this week and find out where?
Today.
Okay.
I didn't get a response.
Okay.
So many residents that I talk to doing shade tree out there all the time, why'd they take Channel 77 off, they want to know. I said, it's not off, you're just moving it.
Well, we are not moving, Cablevision is moving.
Taking a long time.
It is taking, I agree with you.
I agree with a lot of things that were said here about the DuPont situation. DuPont is spending millions of dollars in the cleanup. Could they do it faster? We do not know. DEP, EPA is right on top of it. I sympathize with all the people in the plume. I grew up in the plume. I grew up on Schuyler Avenue, right down the street from Karen. And whether or not it should go to Superfund, I'm just an old retired carpenter. I don't know myself, just like a lot of you do not know the particulars. We just all want to see it cleaned up. When you talk about real estate values, yeah, that's part of it, but it's the cleanup and the health of the residents. It's the most important. Real estate values is real estate value. Can't worry about that. It's the health of the residents that's the most important. Let's just keep trying to stay on top of it. Whether the governor, as Mr. Simone was talking about, what he does, hopefully he comes in and he checks it out. And he'll go along with the DEP and the EPA as to, was enough done? It is good to have another set of eyes. And I agree with that totally. Let's hope for all of us it gets done the right way.
I agree 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address? Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close the public session? Councilman Begg? Second. Councilman Bennett, all in favor? Aye. Against? Okay, moving along. Approval of minutes, can I have a motion to approve the following minutes? Regular meeting minutes of February 14th, 2018. So moved. Councilman Deline, Council President? No, you
I
weren't.
can't second, someone else.
Second. Councilman Giacoletto, all in favor? Aye. Against? Bills and claims, motion to approve the following bills as listed below.
So moved.
Councilman Begg? Second. Councilman Bennett? All in favor? Aye. Against? Petitions, we have none. Consent agenda. Anybody asking anything pulled? No.
Whereas the mayor and council of the borough of Pompton Lakes has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions, whereas the mayor and council of the borough of Pompton Lakes does not desire to move resolution for individual action from that agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that the following resolutions on the consent agenda are hereby approved. Resolution 18-72 through 18-79.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Councilwoman Riker, Councilman Giacoletto. Roll call.
Just all in favor.
All in favor, yeah. Aye. Okay, against? Separate action.
There are none.
There are none.
Go to ordinance for
Ordinance,
second reading.
yes, second reading.
And final adoption. These ordinances have been posted on the municipal bulletin board and advertised. Ordinance 18-07, an ordinance authorizing tax exemption and payment in lieu of taxes in connection with the redevelopment plan for the part of Block 6200, Lot 1, and adopting and authorizing the execution of a financial agreement for payment in lieu of taxes with Lakeside Commons Urban Renewal LLC in accordance with state statute.
Okay. Discussion? On that? No, go ahead.
Purpose of the ordinance is to finalize the redevelopment project of Lakeside Commons Urban Renewal LLC, and to have the financial agreement for the payment in lieu of taxes approved, and once that's done, that redevelopment project will start.
And remember, payment in lieu of taxes is why we're doing redevelopment. That's the tax that we get, that's a higher rate than a normal tax that's charged on the building. It usually runs for about 30 years, and that payment constantly comes into the town. Can I have a motion to open the meeting for public comments on ordinance 1807? So moved. Councilman Deline.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Riker. All in favor? Aye. Against? Anyone from the public like to address just this ordinance? Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close the meeting for public comments on ordinance 1807? So moved. Councilman Bennett? Can I have a second? Second. Councilman Giacoletto? All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion to approve ordinance 1807 for final adoption.
So moved.
Councilman Begg?
Second.
Councilman Deline. Roll call, please.
Councilman Bennett?
Yes.
Councilman Begg?
Yes.
Councilman Deline?
Yes.
Councilman Giacoletto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Riker? Yes. Ordinance 18-08, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and borough clerk to execute tower lease agreement and repeater utilization agreement with North Jersey Police Radio Association pursuant to state statute.
I'm going to let the attorney just mention what this is, and I'm going to talk about it in my report.
And the purpose of this ordinance is to permit the borough to continue leasing a portion of the North Jersey Police Radio Association tower, the big tower that's up on the hill, which the borough has been doing for as long as I can remember, and probably longer than I can remember.
1939.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, motion to open the meeting for public comments on ordinance 18-08. So moved. Councilman Deline. Second. Councilman Giacoletto. Anyone from the public like to address just this ordinance? Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close the public comment on ordinance 1808? Council President Riker.
Second.
Councilman Bennett. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion to approve ordinance 1808 for final adoption.
So moved.
Councilman Devine.
Second.
Councilman Bennett, roll call, please.
Councilman Bennett?
Yes.
Councilman Bay?
Yes.
Councilman Deline?
Yes.
Councilman Jacanetta?
Yes.
Councilwoman Riker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep my report short. I did enough talking today, so I'm about done. The only thing I will let everybody know is we are in negotiation with the radio station, a radio station coming in to take over our radio station that has left. The only requirements that we're putting on them right now is they become a local station like we had before, and maybe even improve on that, which they are willing to do. They tell us that they would try to be much more involved in the town and involved in school events. So this is ongoing. Hopefully we'll work out something in the next couple of months. And if it all works out right, we hope to have a radio station back up and running in the next 3 months, which is big news. I mean, it was a donation to the town, so it was nice to get, but it was also a loss to the town when we lost the radio station. So if we can get it back up and we keep the property, that's a great thing. The only other thing I have is we had a couple meetings on budget. We will be presenting our budget in the next month or so, and there'll be more to follow on that, but right now it's looking pretty good for our side of the town side of it for the budget. Okay, Council President Riker.
Okay, Mayor, I'll try to run through these things pretty quickly. First of all, I want to congratulate Steve Grayberg on a fabulous presentation, and I couldn't think of a better person to have our inaugural monitor usage. Much appreciated from one computer guy to those computer guys over there. Job well done. And I can't emphasize enough how hardworking these volunteers are, so thank you very much. We had a lot of things going on since our last council meeting. The redevelopment agency met, relatively short meeting. We did not have conceptuals. We anticipate some more conceptuals coming in the spring, but we did move along one of the redevelopment projects. We did approve some technicalities to keep it moving. The bid also met a few weeks ago. They met in the new offices. The bid now maintains shared space with the coalition, with the drug coalition, and we met across the street, and the room was packed, and the energy was high, and the bid is moving along. They reported a very successful bid buck sale. They are going to only have 2 sales a year. They're moving it from 3 to 2, and they approved their budget, and they were making all sorts of plans for plantings on Montague Ave, talking about the spring concerts and, summer concerts, and things were moving along very well there. The mayor indicated that the finance committee has been meeting quite a lot, behind the scenes to get the budget ready for presentation. Obviously, the main responsibility for that falls upon the borough administrator and the auditor, who we've met with a number of times, and that should be ready to go in a few weeks. We had ribbon cuttings. We have new businesses coming into town. Most of us up here on the dais, if not all of us, I think, were there to welcome. The train station has a used book and record business. He has a very significant online presence, but wanted a brick and mortar store as well. They've done beautiful things with that building. If you haven't been in, please go in and help support our new businesses. Then we also had the Cardinal Auto has new ownership in terms of auto repair, and we did a ribbon cutting there. Liz has been working very hard with Ken Herman. I had a chance to meet with them I think it was yesterday. In terms of many of you who live in voting district 3 know that that's the district that quite often has the lines out the door, at the first aid squad, and she's working with the county to try to divide the district to make it comparable with the others, so that those who want to vote in District 3 will no longer have the long waits that others in the town don't have. And they're hoping that this will be ready for our June primary. I didn't realize it would happen that quickly, but they're hoping that that will move along quickly. The police are, just as a heads up, I know you were talking a little bit about drop-off at Lincoln School. One of the other areas of concern are pedestrians in the crosswalk. We're having and I know we don't have the 77 up right now, but those who are watching, I feel it's necessary, those who are watching it on their computers and those here in the room, to really help get the message out that a pedestrian in the walkway has the right of way. The cars on Wanacue Avenue quite often go speeding through without stopping to allow the pedestrians in the crosswalk to walk across safely. The chief is patently aware of this, and he has and will continue to put sting operations in effect. So please get the word out. If you're driving on Wanacue and there's someone on the curb waiting to walk, you're the one that needs to stop. And as we redevelop the town, and as we fill some of the stores, and we have more foot traffic, we really need to be cognizant of this factor, because we want to make sure that this community is safe. So please help. I know I'm always up here talking about bike safety helmet, but that's probably next month for the spring. So now we're talking about pedestrian safety. So please try to remember this. It really is important to all of us. And the last thing, Mayor, on a lighter note, in my capacity as council caterer, tonight is a Jewish holiday. Tonight is the holiday of Purim. Purim is often referred to as the holiday of where it's called the Megillah reading, a holiday of Haman and Esther. Esther's the heroine, and Haman is the bad guy in the story. And it's a very happy, joyous holiday. It's often coined Jewish Halloween, where the children come to temple and they march in a parade, and they're wearing costumes. But the biggest tradition is that we eat a cookie called Hummentashen, which just means Haman's hat. And it's a triangular hat stuffed with traditionally a jelly, and my grandchildren made them, not so traditionally. They stuffed them with Nutella and with chocolate kisses. So I don't have that batch, but I brought enough for what we normally have in the council chambers, but today I didn't realize that we were going to have a standing room only. So many of you who are in the audience have had a chance to taste them, people in the dais have. So I do still have a few left. And I took the tag that says Hummentashen, so we'll put them over there. So if anyone feels like tasting them, the tradition of the holiday is that we are supposed to share these Hummentashen with friends and neighbors. And the tradition is referred to as Shalach Manos, where you give someone a sweet treat. So there are still a few left, so we'll put them there. So that's my report.
Thank you. Before I move on, I just wanted to thank the Councilman Bennon and the Tech Committee for our new monitoring system here. Not only does it look great, but we can use this now when we do any of our meetings that have blueprints and drawings, so the public can see what's going on behind me, and we can see what's going on these monitors. If you've ever been to a meeting where we had to put up prints, it was very difficult for the public to see something and for us to see something. So this will be a big improvement for those reasons, and also look good up on the thing, so have them know that I thank them. Councilman Giaconetti.
Mayor, I'm going to read the motion for Councilman Branco, since he's out, okay? All right. I'm going to make a motion to approve a request for Cub Scout Pack 88 and 9038 to close Hurstville Park Place between Ramapo Ave and Arcadia Road for the Soapbox Derby scheduled for Saturday, May 12, 2018. Rain date, Saturday, May 26, 2018, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pompton Lakes Riverdale First Aid Squad not on duty at the time. Police to assist with traffic control. traffic cones and barricades. Board of Education confirmed that there are no events scheduled, no activities are scheduled for Hirschville Park. Police, fire, first aid also to be notified. Do I have a second?
Have a second. Councilman Devine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Okay. All right, just wanted to get that away. Thank you, Mayor. I just real quick, just wanted to, first thank also the Tech Committee, on a wonderful job. Looks nice. Can see it, so hard to picture when you're talking about it, now to
Right.
see it. So good job, guys. Wanted to thank both of you guys, for working on the, trails, to see the equipment down there, so I reckon that, good job, yeah. I know it was like 2010, I think you started it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So again, it's great to probably see a bulldozer there or something, but hey, listen, I wanted to thank you. Good job. It's nice to see that going, so thank you for your hard work on that. Also wanted to thank Steve Grayberg and the committee for the lake management plan. Again, they all work hard, and this is what Pompton Lake's all about, volunteerism. And the last two things I had is, our councilman mentioned, we had 2 openings this past weekend, and pretty much everybody was there. The Station 1 book, vinyl and vintage shop, which is in the old train station, and it was great to see him and his family there. And then also, then we stopped over at Johnson & Sons Cardinal Auto on the corner of Lakeside Ave and Colfax. It's the old Luke Oil, and they're there, the mechanic shop. It was good to meet with them and their family, and they were very appreciative, and so that Pompton Lakes had welcome open to them, to the place, and, they look forward to doing business here. They were both people and families who were from out of town, so they seen the value in Pompton Lakes for possible redevelopment and everything else. So, which was good to me in talking with them, that they felt that, listen, we wanted to give Pompton Lakes a chance, we wanted to go there, we felt a lot of good things were happening, and they came there, so it was good to talk to them on that. But that's all I had, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I forgot to mention also that a couple of us here attended the cancer benefit on Saturday that Mary Beth Morton throws out every year. It's great that she does that, but the real impressive part of that is this is her 20th year doing it, and they've raised over $200,000 just in the cancer benefit that she has here in Pompton Lakes every year. That's a lot of money for one person to raise. They rewarded her with that number. The head of the Cancer Society came down to give her a plaque, and, she puts a lot of time and energy into that, and all that money goes to cancer research. I thank her for that, and I thank all the residents that support that. It was a very nice event. Councilman Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. Update for the Tech Committee, as you can see, the monitors have been installed. I'd like to thank the town the borough for supporting that initiative. Like you said, the main driver was so that architects, other engineering firms, they would come in with their easels, folks on the dais could see, but then the folks in the audience could not, so this was the solution we came up with. And there's plenty of other uses as well. OEM had mentioned that they would be able to utilize the monitors. Carly Boniello and I will be doing a drug take-back awareness. There's a drop box by the police station for old expired medications. One of the ways kids are getting their hands on these painkillers is expired medicines or old medicines that no one no longer uses. They're sitting in your medicine cabinets. Here's your spot right here. No questions asked. Just come and drop it off. We can't take any liquids. It'll be on March 11th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll have coffee, some literature regarding drug abuse. It's also daylight savings time too, so sometimes you're a little tired and stuff. The morning of, come in and have a cup of coffee. Someone mentioned that we are the safest school among 200 plus towns or school districts. I think a lot of it has to do, or at least some of it has to do with the sense of community we have here in Pompton Lakes. For better or for worse, everybody seems to know everybody. I'm relatively new to this town, moving in 2005, but a lot of folks came out when I flooded a couple times. We've become really close friends. I've become involved. My wife became involved, which is why I'm sitting up here. I think these kids that are doing these things, they may feel left out, isolated. But here in Pompton Lakes, my kids, I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, kindergarten and 4th grade, and they're just kind to each other. They tell me they look out for each other. They don't. At least my 4th grader tells me that no one's mean to each other. So hopefully this will be the start of something good, and we just keep it going. So that's what I have to say about that. And Councilman DeLion's going to talk about the Morris Canal Greenway project. I saw that work had begun. I popped in to chat with the gentleman this morning. And that's what I got. Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, I know Councilman Venom was at our Municipal Alliance meeting, which is the fourth Thursday of every month, at our new Municipal Alliance office in downtown that shares that with the bid. All parents are welcome. There was a big discussion on underage drinking and things like that are going on in town. If you have a concern as a parent and that's something you want to get involved with, you should come to those meetings. There are people that we pay full-time basis to handle that kind of a situation. So please, step forward. They can always use the help. We have a pretty large turnout, probably 15, 20 people there on a normal meeting. So it's a good group and they do a lot of work there. Councilman Brinkman's here at the line.
Councilman Begg, I think.
Oh, did I skip Councilman Begg?
You did.
You did.
Councilman Begg.
Thank you. Congratulations to the Pompton Lakes athletes. Julia Goodwin is the National Girls and Women's and Sports Award winner. Also, Gino Weibel is District Fencing Champion. And the Pompton Lakes Wrestling team is a District Champion. Drew Flynn is a District and Regional Champion. He's a heavyweight. And Frank Negrini is a District Champion. And while I'm on that, I'd like to say that Pompton Lakes over the years has really produced a lot of good coaches. They're coaching in other schools and that. One of them happens to be my son. He's the head wrestling coach up in Mendham, and he's got 6 kids going to Atlantic City. So congratulations to him and his team. Upcoming events at Pompton Lakes High School, Winter Sports Recognition Assembly is on March 5th at 7 p.m. and the performance of Guys and Dolls on March 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at 7 p.m. and March 24th at 2 p.m. And as always, the volunteer fire department is doing a great job. They had 26 alarms in January. Always do a good job. Got 65 good volunteers there. And that's my report.
Thank you. Just to remind everyone that March 25th, it's a Sunday, is our Easter egg hunt at the tennis courts. It's between the hours of 2 and 3. Anyone in the grades from kindergarten to, I'm going to say 6th grade, but I'm not sure of that 100%, is welcome to come. I guess if you're an adult and you want to look for an Easter egg hunt, we'll let you in there too. But, it's a nice event. A lot of time, the Easter Bunny's there. They find eggs with candy, so if you want to spread that word out there. Councilman DeLine.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple Sundays ago, I attended a dinner held by the Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Patterson to honor people that have supported their organization throughout the year. This year, our police department and fire department were recognized as Public Servants of the Year. What some people may not know is we actually have 2 group homes in Pompton Lakes. They house a couple people with special needs, and our police department and our fire department are there whenever they need to support them. So they were recognized that night. So it was a good night. Apologize for that. And then I also attended the ribbon cuttings for the Station 1 books and record store and the Cardinal Garage. I actually have to stay away from the bookstore because every time I go in, I've been there a few times, I always come out with a couple books, so it's dangerous. It's a great bookstore. It's got some really interesting things in there. This past Thursday was the Flood Advisory Board meeting. One thing I did want to bring up is on March 21st, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the council chambers is our annual OEM seminar. And, we recorded it last year, and it's something that I want to point out because, it's had good attendance when we've had major flood events, and that's not the only point of this seminar. This past summer, we had the water main break, and we had a boil advisory throughout the weekend. And there is information at that seminar that teaches you, that talks to you about how to respond in those kind of emergencies, because not every emergency is, there's flood waters coming, get out of your house. Sometimes it's, you have to remain in place. What do you do? Do you have enough water to maintain? What if it was a snowstorm during that time and you were snowed inside? So definitely come to this, because there's a lot to learn. I've gone past couple of years as much as I could, and it doesn't matter what part of Pompton Lakes you live in. There's a lot to learn from it.
Just repeat it, time and place.
Yeah, it's March 21st from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. I think that's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday, right here in the council chambers. So again, Al usually tries to diversify the speakers, so there's always a little bit to learn each year, a little bit different information. The Stormwater Management Committee is planning their next rain barrel workshop on Saturday, April 22nd. That is going to be at Hirschfield Park from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Rain barrels are a form of green infrastructure where, in particular, rain barrels actually catch rainwater out of your downspout off your house. So where your downspout would necessarily might release the water right into the aquifer and into the water table and turn it to runoff right away, what rain barrels actually have the ability to do is slow it down. They can also be good in times of emergency, as Councilman Bennett knows, because when people couldn't flush their toilets, Councilman Bennett was able to use the rainwater captured in the rain barrel and actually do it that way. So it's got multiple uses. It's good for the environment. It obviously helps. Every little bit helps, especially when in a community like ours. So again, that's coming up on Saturday, April 22nd. The rain barrels will be provided. I think the participants need to purchase the kits ahead of time, but there will be information coming up pretty soon. Maybe it's April 21st. I'll find out. But
21st is a Saturday.
It's Saturday, April 21st. I'm sorry, I mistook that number. The Flood Advisory Board is also planning, they usually do a river assessment every 2 years to assess the outfalls, hazards in the river. That usually provides an input for our annual river work. This year, they're actually going to be looking to get assistance from our CERT, and I believe someone else with another company that somebody works with to actually use drones to do some flying and mapping of the locations, particularly in some of the hazardous areas, more so along the Wanacue River at the north end above Wanacue Avenue. So, we're doing technology in the council room. We're utilizing technology with some of the work that we're doing in the rivers, and I think it's going to provide some really good information going forward for the river assessment. This Sunday, on March 4th, the Trails Maintenance Committee is meeting. It's the second day of the annual, or second day of our winter trails maintenance. We're meeting at 2 to 4 p.m. at Willowfield, the Willowfield parking lot. The trails have been in pretty good condition overall, so it's picking up garbage, removing debris, making sure the trails are good to go for the spring. And then this Saturday, or not this Saturday, but Saturday, June 1st, again, is National Trails Day. June 1st, yeah. It's a ways out, but I do want to bring it up. It's actually in response to a concern that was brought up last meeting, that a neighbor on Whitney Avenue had shared some concerns about ATVs and dirt bikes in the wooded area by the old swimming hole. So what we're actually going to be doing on National Trails Day, this will be our 4th National Trails Day, we're actually going to be blazing and cleaning up that trail loop in Hirschfield Park. What we've discovered from doing the trails in the south end is by formalizing the trail system, by inviting people that are supposed to be there to walk the trails, bring their dogs down there, enjoy nature, those kind of things. It actually provides a little bit of a deterrence for those kind of activities. There's been ATVs on the south end. There will be continued ATVs on the south end, but there's certainly less than there were before. And I think a big reason behind that is because of what we've done with the trails. And speaking of trails, and we've talked about it this evening, the Morris Canal Greenway, the construction has finally started, and I was thinking about it a little bit, and Ed had actually reached out to me about about when it had all started, but Ed Merrill, Maria Kent, and myself actually represented Pompton Lakes back in 2010 when Passaic County was doing their feasibility study for the Morris Canal Greenway. So it's funny to think back even 8 years to think about the planning of it. And, then late 2014, as part of the Open Space Committee, we decided that, doing this kind of path was something that we'd be interested in. And we even decided to do things a little bit different. So January 2015, we sent letters out to residents around the path. Marie was actually at that meeting. She came up and spoke tonight to ask questions about it. We wanted to let people know about the project we were doing. We wanted to get their input. We wanted to hear their concerns. And they were all part of this development of a concept plan for this greenway. And 2 months later, we applied to Passaic County for the open space funding. Before that, we had gotten funding for the tennis courts, and we had gotten funding from Hirschfield Park. And every time we had came up and said, okay, we're going in 50-50 match. That's typically what the rule of thumb was going after county open space. But we recognize that this project's a little bit different. It's a little bit more regional in nature. The Morris Canal Greenway stretches from Phillipsburg, New Jersey to Jersey City. So it has some historic significance, has some recreational significance. So we said, this is a big project that we're taking the lead on, and it's pretty important. And we actually came in lower than 50-50 and said, you know what, we think that you want to see this done too. And Passaic County, to their credit, came in and they really did, they paid up for part of it the first year. And we said, okay, well, we got some of the money, but we need some more. And we went back in and did it the second year, and they came back and gave us a little bit more. And then we finally had enough to sort of go out to bid, which we awarded this past fall. We're still a little bit short, which is why we were doing it tonight. But most importantly, we get to see this project started. So going back to 2010 when this whole planning started, to see it really start to get in the ground now, it's a really exciting time. It's really fulfilling. And, Open Space Committee, Steve Grayberg, who was actually chair of the Flood Advisory Board at the time, we actually went to the Flood Advisory Board and said, we want your input on this. And that's actually how we ended up with the path we did. We wanted to be environmentally sensitive, and that's why we went with the crushed stone in the steel webbing as opposed to asphalt paths, which you might see anywhere, because we know that flooding is a significant concern in that area. So, we had good input from a lot of different groups to make sure that this project's a success. And, we're starting to see that finally come to fruition. So, looking forward to its completion and looking forward to the day that, actually able to ride my bike along it. So, and that concludes my report.
And no, we're not going to do. And, I've seen it, the starts of it. It looks good. I mean, it looks nice, and when it's all said and done, I think it'll be a nice addition. Professional reports.
I request a closed session for negotiations, please.
You are kidding me, right? Okay, one closed session. Next.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a couple things in my report. Just so everyone know that on March the 21st, State County Community Development is going to be having a roundtable discussion, 2 actually a day, one in Wanacue and one down in their offices, and the total get feel for the community's wishes and goals relative to community development and potential funding in the years to come. I provide the council with information from the mail. We're in a new GIF now, and the Missile Liability has a safety institute, and if everybody goes online, the town, the elected official can receive $250 toward our insurance premium reduction. So if you have an opportunity, it's in the folder. Please go online. I did it. It takes about a half hour to watch the video and get the certificate. We received a letter from the NJDOT.
Kevin, was it in the...
has been funded.
Kevin, was it in the paper folder or in the...
No, it's not. It's in my report.
In the report.
In the report, not in the paper.
That's my report. It's about 3 or 4 down.
Okay.
$20,000 has been awarded to repave Montclair Ave, and that'll be done next year. That's a next year project. So next year we'll pave Montclair Ave.
And I will tell you, I got 4 different calls from 4 different groups of politicians who all took claim to the fact that they got that $250,000 for us. So, somebody got it for us, but I don't really know which group did it.
What normally happens, so everybody understands that, this has now been awarded in March of this year. There's no way we can have this thing designed and out to bid prior to, the end of the fall when paving becomes a problem. So what will happen now is, we're going to have this year's project from last year's funding, Montclair will be next year's project, this year's funding. That's how we kind of do it. So we design over the winter, and we bid out, and then it goes out in the spring. As Councilwoman Rector mentioned, we were having a number of budget hearings with the Finance Committee. This evening, we met with the whole council at 6:30 to go over the budget. Chuck was here, explained the revenues and all the ins and outs. At this point in time, the budget will be set for deduction on March the 14th. That might be one of the earliest introductions I can remember in quite a while, which will help us also fast track our capital improvement projects, so forth and so on. So we will move forward in the budget and hopefully have that put to bed by early April.
Any questions for the administrator? No? Okay. Moving on. Motion to open the meeting for public comments.
So moved.
Councilman Bennett, Council President Riker, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address? Please step up. Nope, she came first.
Millie Seattle, 444 Millen Avenue. Mayor, I forgot to ask a couple of the merchants for the A&P. They wanted to know if anything's coming in, going out, what's going on with that. I missed the bid meeting, so...
Yeah, I had a meeting with a pretty large supermarket chain. Unfortunately, they do not want to move into the site. They did say, this is a pretty substantial chain, they did say that it's an excellent mall, it has a good potential for a supermarket here. He sees the situation we're in with the closeness to other supermarkets, and he said what we should really start to try to think about is a specialty market that might want to come in, because he said, believe it or not, and I didn't even know this, that a lot of the supermarket business is going to Targets and Walmarts, and our proximity to Target and Walmart is also hurting us. So a lot of people, I guess, do their shopping at Targets and Walmarts. So we're still, and the landlord was there also. The landlord was pretty optimistic that 90% of that building now is rented. So really the only 10% that's not is the supermarket. They just added a doctor's offices will be going in there, and they're taking 2 storefronts, and then a pliable type of store will be going in. So they've added the stores. They are not willing to break up the supermarket yet to make it small stores. So that's a good sign. So we'll see where we go with that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to address?
Kumantosh, huh? Mike Simone, 25 West Lenox. I just wanted to clarify a couple things that were said before by me. What I gave from my discussion was more of a factual presentation. It wasn't something that had to do with opinions on people's lives. I understand the concern. It's emotional, as you well know. I've been involved between planning board and council for many years. I heard through many meetings. But what I was trying to bring to all of your attention, anyone else that listens, is certain things have been done, certain things are left to do. There's a limitation on those abilities to do those things. And so my intention was not to diminish the fact that people are hurt by this, because I think everyone acknowledges the fact that there are likely people who have been, got sick or maybe died prematurely. There's all kinds of stories. I don't have any intention of addressing that. I just want to make sure that it's understood that the discussion I had was a factual one, where this is what's gone on, this is what has to be done, this is what can be done, and in particular with the mitigation systems. I don't know how long the level of vapor intrusion was what it was since day one, up until the day they tested. Could have been low, could have been high, no one knows. You can't go back and say what was. But going forward from that day, we know what it was, and action was taken to help that. So, for people who have lived there for an extremely long period of time, were they exposed? I don't know, maybe likely, but nothing can be done about that at this point, from my perspective, which was simply factual. So, if anyone took offense that I was diminishing their personal health issues, that wasn't what I was trying to say. It's what was, what is, and what could be, and we're really limited on what could be. That's it.
I appreciate that, thank you. The one thing I'll take from what you said, and so one of the residents said it, and I think it made sense the most. We could all talk about living in the plume, but until you live in the plume and have to deal with that on a daily basis, that's a different story. And again, I always try to put myself in the place of that person. If I was that person living there, I would have uncomfortable feelings about what's going on in that plume. So I would want as many answers as I could also. So and look, we're all talking about it because this is what we need to do to make the town better, but we also don't live there. So I understand both sides of that a little bit. So it is hard, but I understand what you were trying to say, and that these are the steps involved in trying to get where we're trying to go to, but I also understand that people have to live there every day, so it's a little both. Anybody else from the public like to address? No, so I'm sorry. Woman behind you, I'm sorry. All right, I'll get you next time, okay. Oh, go ahead. One of you come up, I don't care which one it is. Come on up, you come up.
Senior citizens. Evelyn Prophet, 34 Scholar Avenue. I live in the Plume. I've lived in the Plume for quite a number of years. I was raised in Pompton. I swam in your lakes. I lifeguarded in your lakes. I'm not particular about Superfund or whatever. I've gone to all the CAG meetings. I've read everything. I've been to all the meetings. I try to stay informed. I have a mitigation system. I've had it for years. I was one of the first ones to get one as soon as they came out with them. I figured, why not? I don't worry about my health every day. Of course, I wouldn't want to build a rec room in my cellar either. But I get the feeling sometimes like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this. Yes, they are. But they have dragged their feet. And I don't think anybody that sits up here, my elected officials, can sit there and honestly tell me that they've done everything that they should in a timely manner. They have. We had a meeting with the DEP or whatever in September with this hydraulic well stuff. We're still waiting.
I agree, that's horrible. And I called
for
them.
their comments.
I agree with you.
And it's experimental. And you know the water table is not too low. And they're going to start flushing stuff under our homes, and we can't get any kind of protection. I mean, if they would come out and say, okay, if anything goes wrong, we'll fix it, which they can't because they're going to flush contaminated water into our cellars. But it's like, I would just like the feeling that I've got some support. You know, like you really do care, and that I know you don't want to offend DuPont.
That's not true.
100
I would say no one here is trying to protect DuPont, but we also have to protect the fact that there's facts that we have to follow.
I realize that. And as I said, I'm not like super fun or whatever, and I realize the polluter is responsible. I also realize that they've turned all their stuff over to Chemours, and how many years do you think it's going to be before Chemours goes bankrupt? It won't affect us, because that's already allocated, those funds for the lake and stuff. So the lake will get cleaned up, and they'll make it all pretty, and everybody will say, oh, isn't that wonderful, look what DuPont's did. And meanwhile, we sit there on top of our polluted water.
And that is a concern. You know, we, from the beginning, were a little concerned about that. We actually brought in some bigger people above us to question that, about the money and where it's going to go and how it's going to last through this cleanup. And we've been told from the federal government, not people associated with DuPont, that their money would be there. But it's still a question. It's still an out there question.
Well, the money was allocated from DuPont before Chemours and everything for this cleanup.
Right.
So this should not be a problem.
Well, but the company of Chemours itself.
Right.
That's
But
right.
what happens after that?
Yes.
And how many years? And Chemours took on all of their polluted sites, which is considerable.
It is.
So what do you think is going to happen in a few years? Then it's going to be going through the courts to make DuPont responsible, which they are in the long run, but how many years will that drag on?
I don't think anybody up here is going to deny the fact that this is dragged on. I mean,
Yes.
it was one of the first things I said when we started. Could this have been done faster? Probably, yes. But also being involved in government for a very long time, government is not the fastest pace in the world either that does things.
No, but I mean, they cleaned up Asset Brook up to the Delta, and how many years did it take them to go on it?
Yep.
And they dragged their feet about that, and what they would clean up, and what they wouldn't clean up, and how much they would clean up. So, you know.
You're right, it did take a long time.
And God knows, they had the money to do it,
They
they just
did.
don't have the conscience. Thank you.
I agree with some of that you said there. Anyone else from the public like to address? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, go ahead.
Thanks for your indulgence. My name is Peter Strange. I'm not a resident here. My address is 6 Jeffrey Court, Otisville, that's upstate New York. And I haven't brought you good news. In fact, I've entitled this Genocide by Scalpel, because that's the title given by one of the investigators in forced organ harvesting in China. Their updated research concludes that China's hospitals transplant between 60,000 and 100,000 vital human body organs each year. But China has no real organ donation program. Here in the US, with the most sophisticated organ transplant system in the world, a patient will wait up to 3 years for matching organ to become available. In China, however, the waiting time is measured in weeks. An organ transplant tourist for China, including one from right here, can arrange a specific date for their operation, which effectively means that someone will be killed on their behalf on that date. It's a cultural taboo in China to donate one's organs after death. What's the source of these organs? Translation of these facts equates to tens of thousands of prisoners of conscience each year being killed for the organs. Most of these prisoners of conscience are Falun Gong practitioners, but also Tibetans, Uyghurs, and Hus Christians. They are routinely blood tested and their organs examined while held in China's forced labor camps, detention centers, and black jails. A 1984 regulation, ironically, decrees that they and their organs become the property of the state. On June 13, 2016, the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed Resolution 343, which in its summary section, quote, condemns the practice of state-sanctioned forced organ harvesting in China, close quote. The European Parliament has also passed similar regulations. This has been happening for over 18 years. There's still a deathly silence on this issue, and that is why I stand before you, the elected and respected representatives of the community, to weigh the heavy burden of this genocide as acknowledged by the House. China has total control of its own media and way beyond, so it comes down to this type of word of mouth, to divulge what's happening. Many dedicated researchers have gathered an enormous amount of data from current and archived hospital websites, medical journals, local media reports, telephone surveys, and other evidence for the 865 hospitals in China that have performed these organ transplants. So books are now being written and documentaries have been produced with more comprehensive information. So I brought along a package of handouts.
Did you give it to our clerk and she get it to us?
Thank you very much.
And what are you looking for? I mean, what's
Well, I do include a proclamation request in there. This information.
Okay.
Thank
We
you
can
very
take a
much.
look at that. Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address?
Randy Hitton, 443 Montclair Ave.
Thank you.
You know who I am?
I've seen you before.
I just want to start off, quite a few times, Steve Rayberg and you, Councilman DeLine, mentioned outfalls. I don't know if everybody realizes, I'm not 100% sure what outfalls are coming into the water body.
Actually, Steve could probably do a better job than I could, really.
Yeah, the drain that you see on the street,
Storm drain.
storm drain, and they ultimately connect to some outfall.
They go into the
water line. And it's,
Oh.
usually based on big concrete.
Yeah, I know what they are now, but I just didn't know the term outfalls and what that was coming from.
Inlets and outfalls.
Okay. Also, Councilman DeLine mentioned about the OEM meeting, seminar coming up. I wasn't there last year. I saw it on Channel 77. Hopefully 77 will be up by March 21st. But it was very informative, and it was something that, Mr. Evangelista put on, and it was very informative. It was something worth seeing.
I said something right, just so you know, all these council meetings that have not been shown are already been videoed, are already been saved and archived. So
Okay.
when 77 is up, we will run them from our last meeting that was playing through till we catch up.
Oh, okay, that's very good. Is there work being done on Summit Ave? I was up there checking a tree that needs to be removed, and there was some surveying going on.
There will be some work up there, yeah.
All right, so the new curbing is going up?
Yes, it is.
Wow, hope my taxes aren't going up because...
They already went up, so you're okay.
The cancer benefit, I also attended that. It was a very good time. I've been going, the last 7, 8 years. Somebody won the band.
It's not my privilege of the floor, you just stole mine.
Also, Councilwoman Reichert mentioned about pedestrians. Pedestrians should always have the right of way. I mean, vehicles should always stop. Whether they're jaywalking or not, that's up to the police department to give the pedestrian a fine. But pedestrians should always have the right of way in town, and we should always yield to them.
Yes, jump in real quick. And as a transportation planner with a background, I tend to lean towards the pedestrians' right to cross, and drivers always have to use due care, but there is a responsibility for the pedestrian crossing the street to cross the street at either marked sidewalk or marked crosswalk locations or unmarked crosswalk locations, which is basically an intersection of two streets. So the idea that pedestrians always have the right of way is not, I don't want to say incorrect, but it's sort of, there has to be an expectation that a driver going down the street knows where those points are, and to say, well, pedestrian can cross at any point in the roadway, I think it's sort of unfair to people that are otherwise obeying the law. So, we have to educate pedestrians as much as we do drivers, that pedestrians do have the right of way in certain circumstances. That doesn't absolve them of their right not to hit a pedestrian, even if they're outside the crosswalk, but I don't want to get into that thinking that, pedestrians should be able to cross wherever they want to.
No, jaywalking is illegal.
They also have a responsibility, as the driver does, not to text while they're walking across those streets.
That's another point. Yeah, very good. The radio station. We have a chance of somebody running that as a radio station?
Yes, a very good chance.
It's excellent news.
Yes, and it's not town-run, it'll be private, we're not putting any money into it. And we'll work out some details later on, but it should be a profitable thing for the station running it and a profitable thing for the town.
So that entity would lease from us?
Something like that, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's good news.
Good news. I went by the start of the Morris Canal walkway, and I was talking to the contractor there, and I was watching them put in the crushed stone, and it's a nylon webbing that they're putting in there. And is there a decision made on that as to that's what we're going with? Because to ride a bicycle on that crushed stone is almost impossible.
I had asked that.
And to push a baby carriage on it would be impossible.
It's going to compact a little bit more over time. It's not crushed stone, so it's not going to grind into some asphalt or concrete kind of material. But the engineer, the supervising engineer, I believe wrote his bike on it, and it's rideable. Immediately it's not going to be the smoothest ride, but it's certainly something.
There was another composite or something that they could use?
What's that?
Wasn't there another composite that they could use on that? It was a 3-letter?
That I'm not sure about.
Oh, okay. That would pack down more?
Well, it's still gonna have a certain drainage coefficient, so it couldn't become too compact as a result, because it is in a floodway, and that was a major consideration to get permitting to do the
project as a whole. Yes. And let's see what else. Oh, in that last meeting, that couple came from 164 Whitney Ave and was talking about back of Hurstfield, people cutting up trees, and I did go down there and check that out. And yes, there was a lot of trees cut up down there. Somebody had a chipper down there because there's at least 3 spots where wood chips were blown in there. I don't know if the town,
We haven't, but I spoke to the police department, and they are monitoring that area.
a lot of trees cut up in there. So, yeah, let's hope we stay on top of this. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close the public session?
So moved.
Councilman Devine, Councilman Bay. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Approvers on the floor? Anybody?
I have a quick one. I did want to congratulate one of our residents, Mary Beth Morton, as was mentioned a moment ago, had her annual celebration of life for the benefit of the American Cancer Society. It was the 21st year, and several members of the American Cancer Society came to acknowledge her. She has raised during these events over $200,000, which is just phenomenal. I mean, it was a wonderful evening. It was a good time. Obviously, we had a great band there, for one of our residents to sort of single-handedly start something like this and have such a huge group of volunteers and supporters, kudos to her.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Councilman Devine. Councilman Giaconetti. Thank you, everyone, for coming. In closed session, we talked about negotiations and contract. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Council President Riker, Councilman Giaconetti. All in favor? Aye. Against? Okay.